Have you ever started doing something thinking to yourself, you know what, this can't exactly go all that far. I'm just touching the waters a little bit. And then you end up with a completely random sessions clock bolted to a plank of wood on your workbench because you just can't seem to stop when things get a little bit out of hand. Well, that's where I am at the moment. So I ended up with this thing, which is now covered in sawdust because I've made this impromptu test bench here for this thing because I wanted a clock for my workbench. And the reason why this is a mechanical clock, aside from the fact that that's what Sessions built, is because I wanted a mechanical clock. So it actually originally started with this thing here, which is this here is a Chinese reproduction of just a mechanical clock. They still make these, so if you actually want a mechanical clock, you don't want to go through the rigmarole of having to go to this extent to get one to work properly, you can actually just buy one brand new, and it is and it's fairly simple to get those working like properly to keep good time. That keeps good time. Because I don't know, like I used to have just a quartz clock, but how could I be a maker of things and not have a mechanical clock just sitting on my bench? It's like this here is the pinnacle of what I'm trying to achieve here with the making of things. But this, right up until today, has given me sort of a little bit of grief and a whole lot of mysteries. And this lamp here is touching my hair, and it feels very strange. But in any case, today I want to show you just how this works because it's taken me a good solid week or so to actually get to the point where I know how this works, because this here was in a whole lot of pieces, and it turns out when you go through Google and ask them, hey, how do you assemble a sessions clock? They just tell you to buy one without actually giving you any information to how to put it together. So hold on a second, let me just show you what it is that I'm working with here. You'll have to bear with me, I'm trying to keep this camera as steady as possible because I don't like the idea of I want to show you what this is, and I don't want to be confused by what I do by showing you this. Okay, so I'm going to use a thing, just bear with me. This thing specifically to try and show you what's going on here. And if ever you run into a situation where you're trying to buy a part for a clock that you have because you don't know how to make a new part, and you buy a lot of clock parts that contains a nearly complete version of something that you've never worked on before, but is complete enough that you go, you know what, I'm going to try my hand to put this together. And it just happens to be this type of mechanism, this American clock specifically, the Sessions Chime and Strike, then this video is for you. Just so bear with me for a second. Okay, so the first part that you'll discover is this wheel here. This wheel here is called the count wheel, and so you've got these deep grooves here. So there's a deep groove there and a deep groove there, and each of these deep grooves here corresponds to an hour on the clock, right? So you've got 1, 2, 3. So this set of teeth here would represent 5 o'clock, right? So chime once, twice, thrice, 4 times, then 5 times right there. Then you've got 6 o'clock, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And then it will stop at the 6 o'clock. And that there, so these deep grooves here are corresponding to this lever here, which is called the count lever. So this count lever is interacting with 3 separate things on this mechanism simultaneously. So from this pin here, there is a lever that you can see just here, which interacts with this pin just there. There's a pin right there that you can see between the movement plate and the wheel, right there. So if I move this wheel, you can actually see that wheel. And that pin is meant to act as the stopper for this whole thing. So to prevent this whole mechanism from spinning around continuously, it will stop there once this lever drops into a point, right? So when this lever actually lifts up, you can see that part of the lever will actually lift up and disengage from that pin, right? That's the first part, or the second part of this whole, this stage of process. Now, if you can see maybe from here, there is another lever right there. So I'm touching it right now. And that lever interacts with a cam wheel right here. So as this lever lifts up like this, you will actually see that part of the wheel, that part of the lever system lifting up. So if I just pick that up like this, you can see there's a lever in back there that will actually pick up as well. And what will happen is that wheel, or at least that cam, there are 2 parts to this, or at least 2 halves to this cam. So right now it's interacting with one, and there's another on the opposite side of this cam wheel here. And as this whole part of the mechanism spins, this lever will actually count each individual slot before it will drop into one of these, and causing this pin to then engage with that and disengage the whole mechanism from continuing to spin. Now, we've got to that point. Where in this mechanism does that interact with the timing side of the mechanism, right? Because, so say for example, as this is spinning around just like this, the escape lever is just doing its thing, and the whole mechanism and the whole train of wheels is just providing power to count time through the hands on the dial plate on the opposite side of this plank of wood, which would obviously be the cabinet. How exactly does, when this strikes the hour, does this whole thing begin its process? That was the part that I didn't know. So I'm not too sure if I can actually point you in the right direction. Maybe if I, well, jeez, okay. Spin this around and shine you over into here. You can see there's these 2 cam lobes. There's one here and one here. So these 2 cam lobes are actually pointing opposite each other. So one's pointing in this direction, the other is pointing in this direction. So with this movement in particular, it actually chimes on the hour and the half hour. So normally there's a bell just here, where a hammer will run from here and actually bing against the bell, which will be connected to here, right? So that interacts with one of these lobes. The other lobe is the hour lobe. So when it reaches to the hour, that lobe will engage with this side of the mechanism via this part called a J lever, right? So the J lever also has 3 parts. So if I point you in here, you can actually see right there. So maybe if, so right there, there's a piece of plate that runs right down to here, and there is its lever just there. That there is called the J lever. It's a little bit bent that way at the moment, and I'll bend it back at some point when I take it apart and do all some other stuff, because this clock does need to be bushed, I think. Right, so there's another lever here which connects to that J lever, the pin of which, or the pinion of which, is here. So that pinion is part of the J lever. There's one section of the J lever which runs down to here and interacts with the cam lobe, with the hour lobe, I should call it. There's another one here which runs in this direction here, right? So at some point this will engage with the hour wheel. Sorry, as this lifts up, this cam lobe will actually spin around and engage with this. So when this part of the lobe then drops down, when the lobe has completed a rotation to a point where this part of the J lever drops down, then it will begin its process of counting each of the hours before dropping into a lever, and then that pin spinning around and stopping against here. Right, but how does all of this interact with that? Because neither this lever or this lever interacts with this lever here. Well, if I swing around maybe up to here, right down in there, you can see there's one lever here and one lever there. So this lever here and this lever here. This one on the top is your count lever, the one that interacts with the count wheel. And this part of the lever down here, that there is actually the other end of the J lever, right? So as it interacts with the lobe on the hour lobe, this will actually lift upwards. So if I lift that, that is what lifts this count lever here, right? So assuming this is running properly, once it's all together and everything like that, then this J lever will lift up, catch that pin that's on this wheel. Then when this lever drops, this will begin its count process. Then this will drop down. Obviously this is no longer engaged. Then this pin will swing up and run itself against that part of the lever, and the counting mechanism stops. For the half-hour chime, it runs on this lobe just here. So if I bring this up to here, you can see that lobe interacts with the hour chime, the hour strike. This lever interacts with the half-hour chime. So that lever will spin back, push the hammer back like this, and it will just bing. That's the half-hour section. And at some point I'd like to make a new hammer for this. I wanted to make an entire video about my putting this together, but I figured I wanted to share this because I'm assuming that I'm, at least from my little bit of digging, that I'm the first person to think to myself, oh, I will put a video together to explain how this entire thing works. So if this helps you, then please like and subscribe.